Welcome to the Dolce Vita Lifestyle Channel. I am your host, Dangerous One. Coming at you live from the Danger Lounge. And today we're going to be talking about something very near and dear to my heart, which is analog. I always talk about living unprocessed lifestyle, living creatively, living life as art, choosing your own adventure, right? Living in the moment. You can't live digitally all the time. It's not good for you. And that's why, because you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why are we talking about records, vinyl, music on the Dolce Vita Lifestyle Channel? And I'm glad you asked, because music is food for the soul. We talked about processed living, right? You eat processed food, it's not good for you. You know what happens. Disease, illness, getting fat, it's not good. None of it's good for you. But what happens when you live a processed lifestyle? You watch your box TV, you sit in your box cubicle, you eat your box lunch, right? You look at your box phone all the time. Well, it's processed living. It's a processed lifestyle. What happens? It's bad for your soul. Mental illness, emotional illness, isolation, depression, anxiety, medications. Okay, same thing. So, music is food for the soul. If you're going to feed your soul with the same crap that you're feeding your body with, processed food, then, yeah, how can you possibly be entertained, number one? Now, so we're going to get into records. So very much La Dolce Vita is about music. And if we're talking music, you can't ignore records, you can't ignore analog, because that is the quintessential. Mwah! You know, and all my people, much love for the VC, the vinyl community. Anybody that watches my channel maybe does not know about the vinyl community, but it is a strong, vibrant community full of artists, people appreciate art, people appreciate real music. And that's right, I say real music on purpose. And yeah, so I'm going to make one of these videos, and this is going to be my vinyl challenge. I'm going to spread this one throughout the VC, if you will. So this is the danger list. You ready? All right, there's like 15 of these bad boys, so let's get to it, shall we? Number one, records that you will never trade or sell for whatever reason, sentimental or otherwise. So there's a couple of them I couldn't find. You know, you have your record collection around, there's records everywhere. I found most of the ones I was looking for, I didn't find them all. So some of them are stand back. I'm just going to have to mention two, that's going to have to be good enough. Like there's a Fela Kuti that my cousin gave to me before the pandemic. He actually shipped it to me during the pandemic, rather. And you know, he wouldn't know how long we were going to be locked down, so he shipped it to me. If you guys don't have it, if you guys have, you know what I'm talking about. It's the Fela Kuti in Africa playing with Ginger Baker live. It's like 1974 or something like that. Freaking amazing. If you don't have it, it is one of the best live experiences. Great beats. You know, I mean, just, it's awesome. You got to get that. You'll see what I mean. There's a Godfather soundtrack that was my grandmother's that I have. That's never getting sold, obviously. That's sentimental, especially to me. Also, my cousin gave me a Buddy Guy and Junior Wells during the same pandemic. Otis Spann, Buddy Guy, and of course the Southside Blues Jam with Junior Wells. Also amazing. Put this on when you feel like I don't know, drinking some Jack, sitting back. You know, if Sinatra's on, because that's the next one, by the way. Sinatra. And this had to go on the list as well, because although I have a couple copies of this one, I was in Hoboken and went to a store in Hoboken, which of course is Sinatra's home base. And it's got the tuneshoboken.com on it, which is the store, Tunes, in Hoboken. And I had to find me some Sinatra, so I got me one of his favorite albums, or one of my favorite albums of him. This is a really nice sounding sonic pleasure, if you will. Highly recommend this. This thing is pristine condition, and it was like $10, worth every dime. And I got it in Hoboken. Come on. So sentimental value to me. Number two, music only records. And what do I mean by this? What records do you have that you own that you bought for the music only? In other words, for whatever reason, like I'll give you a couple examples here. I bought this record for the sonic qualities only. Not that this is known for being a high quality sounding record to start with, but simply because I care about the music. So there's certain records that we'll talk about in a bit anyway. that every time you see them, you feel compelled to pick up. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's like, I have 10 copies of this. Why do I need another copy? Because this one's in better shape and it's this pressing. So you pick it up. Well, Sticky Fingers and a lot of Stones albums are that for me. And as you can see, this one was jacked. However, it was $10 and it was the sonic pressing of this. So if you know anything about this pressing, it's one of the better US pressings. I wanted to see what it sounded like. The disc itself is fine. It's VG Plus easy. And just the outside is quite mangled. Someone went to town with a zipper, I won't ask. So that's one of them. Here's the other one. Now I've got two copies of this. One is a standard issue and one is this bad boy. The Columbia House Metallica Master of Puppets. Now, if you know anything about this pressing, it is a sonic marvel. It will blow you into your seat. It's that good. And it really is that good. And I have the standard pressing of this, an original as well. It sounds good, but not quite this good. It is a little bit on the fucked up side, but it's not bad. This is one of my most mangled covers that I own. But I got a decent price on it because the record goes for a lot of money. I got a decent price on the record. I could hear it, so I only bought it for the sonic purpose, for listening to it, obviously. So that's what I mean by that. Number 3, underrated records that jump into your head right away that you own. It's like, you know, if I ask this question to you in 2 days, you're going to have different answers, right? We all know this. But the ones that jumped out at me when I asked myself this question, records in my collection that are very underrated that nobody talks about. One that I don't have near me, it's in there somewhere. Anything Johnny Winter is underrated, by the way. Blues master Johnny Winter. And he's got one called Nothing But the Blues. And if you haven't heard that record, it's like, you can get that for probably $5, $7 maybe, in good condition. Go get it right now. You can find it at any record store will have it. You see it all the time. It is unreal. Nothing But the Blues, Johnny Winter. Gotta get that one. The other one that popped in my head was this one, this little baby right here by Chet Baker. I'm a huge Chet Baker fan. I had never seen this particular record before. I saw it at a record show. It's called Baby Breeze. It's on Limelight Records. Okay. You gotta have this. I had never heard of it before. I put this on. I'm a big Chet Baker fan, so I figured I was gonna like it. And I put it on, sure enough. This is the one you want to have a late night drink with. This one here. Pour yourself some bourbon, some whiskey, dim the lighting, put this on, and suddenly it's 1965. This particular copy is a 65 mono. Sounds amazing. I don't have a mono cartridge. Once I do, this is one of the first records I'm going to put on. It's that good. Sonic masterpieces of your collection. What records do you have that, you know, when people come over, you're just like, you got to hear this. You got to hear it. It's unbelievable. And in every good record collection, you have scores of these, right? But some of the ones that pop in your head, at least in the moment. So this is a couple that popped in my head in the moment. This one right here. I know you've heard of this. If you haven't, you should. Duke Ellington Masterpieces. Originally came out in 1950. It was re-released by Acoustic Sounds, I believe in 2015, 2014, somewhere around there. This is a 33. There's a 45 as well. Duke Ellington might as well be sitting right over there playing his piano right now, 70 years later. That's how good this sounds. You hear every piece of the music, every instrument, great separation, fabulous. And the fact that you can get this brand new, you know, and it sounds, I mean, I don't know what the original sounds like. If I find one, I'm going to pick it up and compare it, but I just can't imagine it sounds any better than this. It's amazing. So that's definitely one of them. The other one, which is not going to come as a surprise to you, to anyone out there who likes to rock in their face and blows. Remember that old Maxell commercial back in the day, right? Where you saw the profile pic and his hair was blowing and you just saw the silhouette and he's holding on. Zeppelin 2, and specifically, now this isn't depressing, I didn't want to bring it out, but RL. Robert Ludwig, Hot Cut. Everyone knows it, and I was wondering if the hype was real. I found myself 2 copies pretty close to each other not at the same time, but within like weeks of each other, and they sound incredible. I have like five copies of Zep 2. I did pick this up not long ago. This is 77 reissue as well. Also sounds good. This is cut by what's his name? You guys know. The other one that sounds really good. Who's it cut by? It's going to bother me. It's a 77. It's also it's not quite as dynamic and powerful as the hot cut, because that again would just that's on a different level altogether. Almost every record I own, it's just it's that good, especially for a rock record. It's unreal. This is not far. This is not far from that. It's that close, and it's not expensive. I got this for $30. This thing is VG Plus all day, probably near mint. It's really good shape. Also excellent. So if you can't find the Zep 2 RL, get the Zep 2. What is his name? Anyway, it's 77. You'll find it. Another one, Sonic Pleasures. Again, I just picked three that stood out in my mind. Again, I could come up with 1,000 more. HOARD. Is that how you say it in German? Da Beatles. Ja. The German pressing of the American equivalent of Please Please Me. This is, I don't know what, it's a 70s version, whatever it is, it's a good pressing. Wow. Just, wow. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is the same. Yeah, Please Please Me. Yeah, I saw her stand there. It's the exact same one that you're going to get in the US. But, I just want to make sure that it's got the song I think is, because I think this is the one that just blew me away. I mean, this thing is pristine. Yeah, the twist in the shadow in here. I understand why John Lennon's vocals were destroyed after that. Highly recommend this. It sent me back. It was like $60, but when you hear it, you understand why. The Dolce Vita. Okay. No, I'm sorry. Best bang for your buck. Some of the things that come to you, that was a really great value. I'm glad I spent money on this. Okay, this is not going to come as a surprise for anybody that's bought this series. The Craft Recordings Chet Baker. Now, there was 4 of them, I believe, they put out. I really like Chet Baker Plays and Sings. I love that one. That's probably my favorite out of them. But this is probably the most renowned. Chet in stereo. Everyone talks about this one in particular, which, I mean, there's a reason why it's unbelievable. But the one I like the best is actually his vocals. A lot of people do not like Chet Baker's vocals for some reason. I don't understand it. I really like it. It's very smooth. It's very calming. It's a soothing voice. It's definitely a little unorthodox. It's not, you know, your typical male vocal, but I like it. And this is incredible. Pleasant surprises. Stuff that maybe that you bought, you were like, you went to the record store like, I've never seen this before. It was like $10. Yeah, I'll take a shot on it. I don't know much about the artist, cover. Who knows? Maybe you got it because the cover makes a difference. So I knew a little bit about Mel Brown. Not a whole lot, but I knew a little bit about him. I picked this up for $10, probably like 2 years ago. It's called The Wizard. If I remember correctly, and I haven't listened to it in a long time, so I couldn't even tell you what songs are on here. Good thing I'm looking at them. Doesn't matter. I don't care what the songs are. This is funky. It's cool. It's a really great vibe setter. This is a great background music. This is awesome. Very funky, very edgy, awesome. Check this. It's $10. It's $10, and this is in really good shape. The Wizard sounds awesome. Mood setters. You want to set a good vibe. Maybe you're having company. Maybe you want to dim the lights, have a glass of wine, have a good conversation with your significant other, or a date that you want to romance, wine and dine. Well, you might be asking yourself, well, Jason Danger, what would you recommend? Here are a few that come to mind right off the bat. I've got a couple copies of this. Sinatra the voice. Really anything Sinatra. You can't go wrong with that, right? But this is one of his earlier ones. It's got that little snap, crackle, and pop to it. No matter what version you get, no matter how great condition it is. I thought it was just a recording. I had a beat-up version of it, a lot of snap, crackle, pop, which I loved. I like put it up with the contrast, or the similarity, I should say, of like a wood wick candle. You know what I'm talking about? It was just nice, right? And I saw one of these in a much better condition. I said, well, let's just try it, because maybe this one doesn't have snap, crackle, pop, even though I don't mind it for those older recordings. And this one had a little bit of that too. So I don't know if it matters. It probably needs to be cleaned, but I don't care. I kind of like the snap, crackle, pop. Right? That's the whole point of it, right? Because there's certain records too, right? You guys will get this. There's certain music I don't need on a record. Doesn't make any sense to get it. A lot of the digital recordings, the modern digital stuff, I don't need. I don't even understand why I would get it on record. Alright? I might have it on CD or I'll just stream it. Or I'll listen to it in my car. There's certain tunes I'll listen to in my car that I really don't feel like sitting around listening to when I'm here. And there's certain records here, especially the jazz records, I'm not going to listen to in my car very often. Right? But there's certain records or certain music that you have to have in only analog and only vinyl. Kind of Blue comes to mind. Miles Davis, which we'll talk about in a second. The Voice with Sinatra. I'm not going to listen to that in my car, but I'm also not going to stream that. You can only listen to that, in my opinion. It can't be processed. It's got to be raw. It's got to be organic. It's got to be the voice. When the needle drops, snap, crackle, pop, and you hear his voice come through like he's sitting in your freaking living room. That's how I want my Sinatra. So this won't come as a surprise to many of you, the mood setters. This is in every video that anyone talks about mood setting records. Antonio Carlos, I never say his name right. Job him. I know it's Portuguese. I don't say it right. So you know this one. Everyone knows this one. Okay. $5. This can be had for $5-10 easily. This is in great condition, and it's true. Someone said, I think it was Michael Frember said it. If you can't get laid to this, you're doing something wrong. 100% true. You should be getting laid to that a lot. My man Antonio Carlos is great by himself, and Sinatra is great at setting a vibe by himself. Then the two of them combined must be amazing. And for me, this is one of my favorite mood setters of all time. Again, this is $3. In great shape. Sounds amazing. Great mood setter. Just classy, elegant, gorgeous recording. Highly recommend. Put that one on and see what happens. That's all I'm saying to you. You like smooth? I like smooth. If you want to set a smooth vibe, I mean buttery, like butter. Dream with Dean. Dean Martin. Now this is not your typical Dean Martin in the sense that this is the carousing crooner Dean Martin. Although you know I love that Dean Martin the best. But in terms of vocals, we forget how talented Dean Martin was. Behind all the shtick and behind all the, he was talented all the way through. Behind all the act and his thing. He was a great raw talent also. Polished talent. Dream with Dean is one of the best recordings that I have. And again, it was like $5-10. I got the mono and the stereo. Until I get a mono cartridge, it's going to be impossible for me to tell which one I like the best. But they both sound amazing. Again, I found this super cheap. And I mean, the recording is just amazing. Again, he's in your living room. Like, you wouldn't want Dean Martin in your living room for $10? I mean, come on. This one's right up my alley. What are the recordings, or what are the pressings, the vinyl that you go out, you're in a record store, and every time you see it, you got to pick one up? In other words, what do you have multiple copies of? Now, I have a lot of records where I have multiple copies because I'm a freak. And I just like multiple things, Take that any way you want. But one of them is Sticky Fingers, because the Stones are my favorite band. So I have 9 or 10 pressings of this. Here's another one. Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. This is a 70s pre-pressing. I have some original monos. I got some early stereos. I mean, I've got, I don't know, about 5 or 6 Kind of Blues. Why, I don't know. Here's one. What's some of the other ones I have? Abbey Road, Sticky Fingers, Rolling Stones, Exile. Anytime I see those, I generally pick them up. If it's a different pressing, I definitely pick it up. Zepp 4, I pick up a lot of. If I see any kind of Zeppelin, I pick it up, multiple copies of them. Okay, number 9, soundtracks. Soundtracks. Now I couldn't find all of these, but here's one I did find. How appropriate. La Dolce Vita. From the 60s, I believe 1960, the original Fellini flick. Music by Nino Rota. Need a run out. Anyway, good. I don't know if you ever seen a movie, classic soundtrack that accompanies it. So that's one of my favorites. Top Gun soundtrack. Come on. Every self-respecting man has to have the original Top Gun soundtrack. I don't know about the new one. I haven't heard that one yet. But the original, you have to have. Also, and laugh at me if you want, but Cocktail. Tom Cruise and Cocktail. A great movie, 80s movie. Perfectly corny, appropriately corny, perfectly corny for the 80s, and a great soundtrack. All right, sexy time. So, it's time that you seal the deal. Because you took my recommendations, and you got my man Sinatra and Dean Martin playing for you in the background, okay? You seal the deal. Now, what do you play now that you're sealing the deal? I got you covered. Here's one for you. Hotel Amore. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this. I hadn't, but I kept seeing it in the record store, and I'm sorry, the cover got me. It says classy, it says sexy, it says sophistication. It says La Dolce Vita to me. So Meow Meow and Thomas Lauderdale. And this is a fun, chill, edgy, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like Parisian in a way. Listen to something like a really hip, cool vibe. She's got a great voice. It's kind of some of the songs are very haunting. Some of them are very upbeat and fun. I don't know. Highly recommend it. It's really good. Every time I put this on, I'm having wine with somebody. Everyone makes comments about this. This is fantastic. The other one would be anything with Sinatra, obviously. But another one, Cigarettes and Sex. And they have several different albums. But all those are great for exactly what you know I'm talking about. Okay, let's move on. Favorite pressing of your favorite record by your favorite artist. So this is mine. I don't know if it's my ultimate pressing because I don't have all the pressings of them yet. There's still a couple that I'm looking for, but I've got like 8 or 9 copies of this also because this is my favorite record by my favorite band. I don't know if it's my favorite pressing, but I certainly imagine it's one of them. The Rolling Stones' Exile Main Street. This is probably a specialty pressing is my guess. It's got all the postcards, and this is an original. It sounds like a rock and roll record should sound. It shouldn't be perfect. A rock record should not be perfect. You want a little bit of let it all hang out. You want a little bit of raw raunchiness to it. This, we're not going to, you know about Exile. Every time I do a video about music, which I don't do that often on the channel, I'm going to start doing more of, I always talk about Exile at some point in time. It always gets in there. You can count on it. And the rawness, the variety of different music, I mean, they were flexing on gospel, flexing with, old school rock and roll, definitely bluesy, very blues album. This is a Keith Richards album, really. Not a lot of hits on it, like top 40 type stuff in terms of, I think Tumbling Dice was a hit for them out of this, but it wasn't like a hit record, like say Sticky Fingers was, where you put out number one and number one and number one. This didn't have a lot of it. It's an ensemble. You have to hear this in its entirety. So when you put this on, don't have anywhere to go, and if you do, cancel your plans. Put it on, sit down. This is another good one for your car, though, because you can listen to this in your car as well. Put this on, though. Have nowhere to go. It's a double record, so it's going to be a little while. That's okay. What else are you doing? Again, this time, pour yourself a little bit more, a little bit stronger, a little heavier. Double shot. And it will take you through a musical journey of Americana, if you will. Blues, gospel, old school rock and roll. I mean, it's an amazing record. You have to hear it start to finish. Don't get up and enjoy it. Sentimental value records, but in the sense of the records that help form your musical taste when you were a kid. Your formal years records, the things that made you appreciate music when you were a youngster, right, would help inform your taste today. One of them, again, the Stones are one of the bands that really My parents would play all the time. The Beatles, obviously, as well. They would play all the time. Elton John, Billy Joel. A lot of those kind of Fleetwood Mac. But this one I remember being on quite a bit. Rolling Stones' Go to Head Soup. I love this album. This is, to me, their most underrated record. A lot of people kind of bash this one, but to me, when they talk about the Stones' best 4 or 5 albums, they always stop with Exile. But they shouldn't, because this is just as good as any of them. It's generally known for being a muddy record. It doesn't sound the best. I don't know. I like it. I like my rock and roll like that. I don't care. The songs on here, just get it, okay? Just listen to me. Listen to what I'm telling you. Another one. Now this is huge. This record, anybody that was a kid during this time or a teenager, I was very young. I was like 7 when this came out. But Def Leppard Hysteria. Yeah. This record, I mean, this set the world on fire. It didn't take off right away, but when it did, I don't know how many went in the top 10 or top 40, but all I know is Pour Some Sugar came on me and changed my life. Changed my life completely. In fact, I had an older cousin, same cousin by the way, that years later sent me that Fela Kuti I was telling you about, as well as the Junior Wells and Buddy Guy. And thank you, by the way, if you ever watch this. But this is what he did for me. Right? You know, you always have, if you talk to somebody who has a musical taste, they're always going to tell you about somebody in their life. Maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a friend, maybe it was a cousin in my case, family member, that set them on the right course. Or the wrong course, maybe. The corruption, the proper corruption that you needed at that point in time. And this is one of those records that did that for me. I was a little kid. My parents were going on vacation with their parents, or his parents, and we were all going down to Florida together. We got in this big van. Of course, this is a very exciting thing as a little kid. And you get in. I'm waiting to get in with my big cousin, Ronnie, who's like my older brother. He's 7 years older than I am. So he's in, high school or about being he's in high school at this point, right? So he would have been in touch with all the music at that time, this being 87. And at this point, the only thing I knew, I was listening to like the Beatles, I was listening to some Stone stuff, but a lot of Beatles. My mom and dad had turned me on to the Beatles. I was listening to I might have listened to some Bon Jovi at that point. It's one of the first tapes I ever got, Slippery When Wet. And I was probably listening to Tears for Fears. That was a great album that came out right around that time, a little bit before 85, 86. And I was listening to mainly that sort of thing. And some Bon Jovi when that came out. Well, I got in, he had his Walkman on, that's an 80s essential accessory. And he goes, I'll never forget this. It's like, I remember us just getting into the van and him saying, listen to this. And he says, listen to this. And he puts it in my ear. And all I heard was, step inside, walk this way, boom, 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 boom. Hey! And I remember hearing that going, I have never heard anything like this. And from that moment, huge Def Leppard fan. This record, I mean, I still have the tape. I played that tape. I must have played it 1,000 times. It was that kind of record, that kind of experience. And it set me on that charted course towards corruption that I so sorely needed. This is the other big bang moment for me. Again, same cousin. So between my dad and my cousin, this is really where I got a lot of my musical taste, or at least it informed me. And Headbangers Ball, you guys remember that? So again, I'm a little kid. I'm watching it. It's like 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. and we're watching in his room, and and it was opening scenes of Welcome to the Jungle music video from Appetite for Destruction. Yeah. And this bad boy got me, I mean, I was in 3rd grade when it came out. 3rd grade. And I will never forget, I was addicted to Hysteria and Appetite. And a lot of other records too, but I mean, I listened to this over and over and over again. And I had never heard anything like that. I'm like, oh, this is different. When I saw that music video, I was like, what is this? So, yeah. Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood. When this came out, now I'm a little bit older, not much older, but still the 80s. This came out, it was like the last peak of the 80s. After this, like Skid Row would come out that time. After this, it was like you started to get oversaturated in the market. You were having some bands that probably shouldn't have made it at that point. They were just copying off other bands, right? You didn't have like the heavy hitters anymore. They were putting out stuff. They were just repeating themselves, right? So then that's when you kind of started to devolve, and it got into, by the early to mid '90s, it was like grunge and shit like that. Some of it was pretty good to some of the grunge stuff, but some of it. But the Crew was like the last final peak, the last gasp of the '80s in terms of like real hard rock and kicking badassery, and that was Dr. Feelgood. Yeah. And then, of course, you can't leave this out, because even though this was the 70s, one of my dad's buddies used to come over and he would give me, what you did back in the day was you would tape tapes for people, right? So if they had a tape, they'd tape it for you, or they recorded off of a record, whatever, and they gave you the tape. And so my cousin Ronnie would do that for me, and my dad's friend Paul brought me some tapes over too. He brought me Def Leppard High and Dry, the tape for me, which was also blew my mind, by the way, and the tape that he made for me of this Van Halen 1. And when I heard this, I'm like, what is this? That shrieking tone of Eddie Van Halen's guitar and that shredding. I'm like, what is this? It was awesome. All I knew was, I didn't know what it was, but I couldn't stop listening to it. So again, one of those records that very formative. Then of course I can't leave out the Beatles, because I listened to the Beatles so much when I was a kid. Because my parents love the Beatles, my mom specifically loved the Beatles. And although I should probably put Abbey Road on here also, because that's her favorite record, Abbey Road. And I listened to a lot. But Sgt. Pepper, I seem to remember that being played quite a bit, as was the White Album. So I had to bring out one to represent that. Recent awesome acquisition that you picked up. Could be anything, maybe something you didn't expect. For me, I picked this up about a week or so ago, and I first heard it in a record store. Sometimes they're playing something like, what is this? And of course they have it on display what they're playing, so you'll buy it. Which I did come back like a week later and buy it, because I couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, that was really good. I don't know what that was. And I've seen this guy, and I should have known better, right? I should have known this. But that's the great thing about records and albums and learning new stuff and getting recommendations from other people. And this guy turns you on to this guy, and this artist turns you on to that artist, and you find out where that artist was inspired by, and you go into the deep abyss, which is the rabbit hole of record buying and or just music in general. I see R.L. Burnside all the time in the blues section, but I don't know who in the hell he is until now. And I saw this. And I've also seen Fat Possum Records, which always says we're trying our best. I've never bought a single record off of them. I was like, how good could that sound? I don't know. But usually those new records I just think of being as like a digital quality, so I don't pay attention. But I didn't care. And it actually sounds pretty decent. It's not bad. So I don't have a problem with it. It was pretty good. But the record itself, the music, R.L. Burnside, and then the title says it all. A ass, not an ass, a ass pocket of whiskey. An ass pocket of whiskey. Now, the record sounds exactly the way the title suggests it to sound. Gritty, dirty, bluesy as fuck. He's got, so it was recorded on the afternoon of February the 6th, 96, Holly Springs, Mississippi. So he's got these artists backing him up. And they are gritty as hell. You have got to pick this up. And again, another drinking record. I'm sorry, it's just what it is. It's got to be whiskey though. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Pick this up. It was $25. You could probably just stream it, but that's worth picking up on record. What are you in the hunt for next? What are you looking for? For me, Sticky Fingers, a shocker. The TML German pressing. It's TML and a dead wax. If anybody has one that's in decent shape that you want to sell, let me know. I'm looking for that. I'm looking for another Exile, but a Monarch pressing, because I don't have the Monarch Exile. I'm also looking for a UK Exile as well, and an Abbey Road UK. I know who isn't. That should probably cost me an organ, but nevertheless. And lastly, not as exciting, but it is what it is. What record maybe you can put 2 or 3 on. What record in your collection gets the most spins consistently? Which ones did you wear out over and over again? Because I know for me, I got 1,000 records to choose from. But it's always the same one. It's the 80-20 principle, right? You got all these clothes, but you only wear 20% of them. Or 80% of the time, you wear 20% of them. Same thing here. I listen to 20% of the records 80% of the time. And there's a couple that come up. I listen to Sticky Fingers a lot. I listen to... basically, it's 3 order. I listen to Zepp 4 quite a bit. I listen to the Stones a lot, the Beatles a lot, the Zeppelin a lot. Those are the 3 I listen to all the time. And I listen to a lot of jazz. And because I like jazz and analog, I don't listen to jazz outside of listen to it on my stereo very much. So, Kind of Blue I listen to quite a bit. A lot of Art Blakey, a lot of Chet Baker. A lot of the old original stuff. I love Louis Armstrong. So a lot of Louis Armstrong when I'm listening to jazz. A lot of the old gritty blues like Buddy Guy and Muddy Waters. And Chuck Berry, anything that was meant to be heard in analog from back in the day. Old school Elvis stuff, original Johnny Cash, original Elvis stuff, original Beatles stuff. Stuff that you want to be transformed back in time. I don't want to listen to that on digital if I'm sitting at home. I'm going to listen to that in analog. Because it is closer to the source. It is less processed. It's raw, it's organic. That's what I want to eat. That's what I want to feed my body with. I also want to feed my soul with it. That's why it's the Dolce Vita. So, your turn. I want to see you do this vinyl challenge. Let me know what you think, what records you have. And it took a while to make this video because I had to pull all these records out, and a lot of them I couldn't find. But I'm curious to hear what yours are now. And I'm going to start making some of these music videos for the Dolce Vita as well. And if you're not already subscribed to the Dolce Vita Lifestyle channel, you should, because we don't talk about just records, although that would be good enough. We talk about anything, the sweet life, living life is art, choosing your own adventure, socializing, becoming a better person, constant never-ending improvement. Living life is art. So there's a lot of film, but it's really about connection, real human connection, the opposite of a processed lifestyle. Travel, a lot of themes Italian. So, if you haven't already subscribed, take a second to do so now. Share this with a friend, and smash that like button like a bass drum, okay? And hopefully I'll see you again. Pass it on. I'm going to send this out to the vinyl community if I can. Some of the people I watch a lot of times in the vinyl community, I watch over and over again because I think you guys do great work. And it's a guy from Kentucky. I always forget your name. I love your work. Anything that you put on, I always watch. I'm terrible with names. I'm sorry, man. Bob Bradley. Love that guy. Love all your stuff. There's another guy, needlemeetsvinyl.com. I'm going to pass this on to you as well. Love your stuff. The really gorgeous blonde, I think in Georgia from the accent, but I'm not positive. You're always doing the records. I can't remember your name either. I'm sorry. Terrible at that. You always open up with, hi, is it Belinda? Melinda. Ha! See? I'm good. And there's another guy I just recently discovered from Holland. I'm going to be sending him one as well. He does the top five records. It's his channel. Also excellent. If you're not familiar with any of these people, you have to be if you like records, because they're all fantastic. And if you like records, it's a great way to learn. And I like watching the records too, because you learn about new music you might not otherwise known about. And especially people who know music and appreciate all types of music, it's nice to hear what they're listening to, because it's like, oh, if they like it, I'll probably like it. Because a lot of times I'll hear stuff and they'll describe a record that I already have. I'm like, man, they are spot on with that. That is so right on. So anyway, I'm a little bit long-winded, but that's just how I roll. So until next time, guys, be safe, but don't be too safe. Live dangerously.